John McCain yesterday decided to attack me for saying that Iran does not pose as great of a threat as the Soviet Union did. And so if we were willing to talk to Gorbachev, if we were willing to talk to Khrushchev, then there's no reason why we shouldn't talk to Iran. Seems like common sense. So John McCain he said, oh, Obama doesn't understand the threat of Iran. I understand the threat of Iran. But what I know is that the Soviet Union had the ability to destroy the world several times over, had satellites spanning the globe, had huge masses of conventional military power, all directed at destroying us. And so I've made it clear for years that the threat from Iran is grave, but what I've said is that we should not just talk to our friends, we should be willing to engage our enemies as well. That's what diplomacy is all about. So let me be absolutely clear. Iran is a grave threat. It has an illicit nuclear program. It supports terrorism across the regions and militias in Iraq. It threatens Israel's existence. It denies the Holocaust. But this threat has grown primarily, and this is the irony, the reason Iran is so much more powerful now than it was a few years ago is because of the Bush-McCain policy of fighting an endless war in Iraq and refusing to pursue direct diplomacy with Iran. They're the ones who have not dealt with Iran wisely. Make no mistake, Iran is the single biggest beneficiary of a war in Iraq that should have never been authorized and should have never been waged. Thanks to George Bush's policies, Iran is now the greatest threat to the United States and Israel and the Middle East for a generation. And John McCain wants to double down on that failed policy. And John McCain is right that the greatest threat we face is a terrorist with a nuclear weapon. That's why when he was busy supporting a war against a country that had no nuclear weapons, I was busy in the Senate working with Republican Dick Lugar to pass legislation to secure loose nuclear weapons and loose nuclear materials around the world. That's why I've made it clear that I'll secure all loose nuclear materials around the world during my first term. But when you're running for George Bush's third term, it's hard to make a case on the merits. So John McCain's using the same George Bush textbook that we've seen year after year after year. Anything other than continuing a war in Iraq has been called the greatest strategic blunder in recent American history, he calls naive. Anything but their failed cowboy diplomacy that's produced no results is called appeasement. Here's the truth. The Soviet Union had thousands of nuclear weapons, and Iran doesn't have a single one. But when the world was on the brink of nuclear holocaust, Kennedy talked to Khrushchev, and he got those missiles out of Cuba. Why shouldn't we have the same courage and the confidence to talk to our enemies? That's what strong countries do. That's what strong presidents do. That's what I'll do when I'm president of the United States of America.